Welcome to the Building Materials Sales and Marketing Podcast, presented by Mark Mitchell, a sales and marketing consultant who specializes in helping building materials companies overcome difficult sales problems. Mark is the author of the book Building Materials Channel Marketing and a frequent speaker at industry events.
Hello, this is Mark Mitchell from Wizard Strategy. Welcome to my next podcast episode. This is going to be fun. You're going to love this one. This is about sales. Sometimes I talk about sales. Sometimes I talk about marketing. This is about sales. And I'm really pumped because our world has changed, and I hadn't really thought about what that means to selling, to salespeople and sales skills. And I have a great friend, Mark Allen Roberts from OTB Solutions. And Mark is my go-to guy when I have a question about sales training, sales development, sales management, even selecting salespeople. He's my go-to guy. He really gets it. He's great to deal with, and he understands the challenges that we have, the unique challenges as salespeople we have in the building materials industry. And what started us off in a conversation was I've always thought about we have two types of salespeople. We have hunters and farmers. And I think about a hunter is a true business development person. They excel at getting up every day and going out like a hunter and finding something. And they may be after an elephant, but every day they may not come across an elephant. They may come across a rabbit that day, but they enjoy the hunt. And then the other type is the farmer, which you may think negatively of, but it takes two, in my experience, and Mark will have a lot more to say about this than I do, but it takes two types of salespeople. One is the person that enjoys and has that skill of going out at its extreme. They go out and make cold calls. At maybe more realistic is I'll call it a lukewarm call, where at least somebody's heard of the company and has an opinion about it, but they just haven't been able to be closed yet. That a hunter can work really well there. And then a farmer is someone that you could think just lets things be, but a good farmer, in my opinion, actually takes a customer, a loyal customer, and first of all, keeps them loyal. Makes it more difficult for a competitor to take them away from you. And number two, looks for ways to grow that customer like growing a crop. And they're going to be better at that. And a hunter's going to feel out of place trying to be a farmer, and a farmer's not going to be necessarily the greatest hunter. And so I thought about those two. And then Mark just last week said to me, well, Mark, there's also two other kinds. And I said, what kinds are those? And he said, there's the babysitter and then there's the fisherman. And what? So I'm gonna turn it over here to Mark, or introduce Mark, or he can introduce himself to us. And then I'm going to have Mark just give us a brief thing about a babysitter, but then get into the fisherman, which is really what today's recording is all about. So, Mark, welcome to the podcast. Tell us, for those who don't know, just a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about just who are these new types of salespeople.
Oh, thanks, Mark. It's always a pleasure to be working with you. And again, I really enjoyed your summit, and I look forward to the next one. Yeah, I've been in sales and marketing for 36 years, and I help building supply manufacturers and channel partners grow their sales profitably. That's what I do. And for years, we've had the farmer and the hunter. And the only time that we see friction is when we ask a farmer to be a hunter or a hunter to be a farmer, as you indicated. But in the last 12 months, we've seen a new style emerge, two new styles. One that we really don't want, which we'll talk about maybe at a later date, which is the babysitter. But the other one is the fisherman. It's pretty fascinating. If you envision, you already have a customer on the hook. Now we just need to reel them in. So you've worked with Mark, you've worked on your digital marketing. You now are getting leads, but what skills are required to be a fisherman? We're really clear on what it takes to be a hunter, right? Or you should be. What does it take to be a farmer? How do I grow my current accounts? How do I expand my share of wallet? How do I increase market share? Those are all things that those guys focus on. But what's this fisherman? I mean, they kind of were, the dawn of the fisherman happened as more and more people started working digitally. And those leads started coming in. People people started shopping digitally. But there's also a skill set in not losing that customer. Once they've engaged, once they've raised their hand, once they've actually taken the bait, so to speak, of some really good SEO or Google AdWords, right?
Yes. I'd love to get your perspective on this, Mark, but it came to me that as the salesperson, we're used to looking at the customer as, I'll call it, cold, warm, or hot.
Right.
And it's like we've identified them. We're looking at them. But all of a sudden, when an email or a phone call or a text or a chat box or something comes from nobody, isn't that all of a sudden they thought, oh, now the salesman is in the shoe's on the other foot. Like the customer sees the company is warm and the salesperson like is totally cold to who's this customer on the other end of the phone.
No, and that's true. And unfortunately, like I said, I've been blessed to work with a lot of manufacturers and their channel partners, and everybody wants to give a customer a great experience. But where I'm seeing it fall apart is in that role of the fisherman. So let's say somebody engages because you've done really good digital marketing. Well, what skills do we need so that we don't, so to speak, rip the hook right out of the client's mouth and make them swim somewhere else, right?
That right there is the thing that got me when you introduced me to this concept. And I said, now what? And you said, well, these the salespeople are getting these inbound leads caused by digital marketing, and they're just as likely to rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. And oh my God, you've now I'm now curious, interested. I now understand that this is a different set of selling skills.
Yeah, and again, I've been the president and CEO of a couple of companies, and nothing would drive me crazier than spending a whole bunch of money on marketing, getting a lead to come in, and having my team not be able to close it for whatever reason.
Yes.
Now, the lead's not only coming in, they're like wanting to start a relationship. They're wanting to give you their money. But what I'm seeing is people are jumping way too fast into a transaction, and what we're seeing is people who are in the fisherman role, which is an opportunity came in either digitally or in some other format. Don't jump just to a transaction, because the only difference between you and another transaction is price. We need to back up a minute and take some time. We need to work on those skills of discovery and qualifying. We need to really understand what's the application. And, again, all in the spirit of giving the customer the best experience. Nobody knows your products and services like you do. And the last thing we want to do is jump to a transaction that might not really be a good solution for that customer. What we're hoping is we get a couple of customers in, we reel them into the boat, they become a customer, and then we start farming and growing those customers. But it takes some skill sets. And again, it really concerns me that as people have really doubled and tripled down on their digital marketing investment, we really need to train salespeople how to handle those leads.
Yes. I just see so many interesting analogies to comparisons to the fisherman. And I think the other is that many websites, unfortunately, their only call to action says get a quote,
right,
which is somebody that is way down the sales funnel. And in today's world, you're doing all kinds of other things to reach people who are just like, well, maybe we should, what if we got a new deck, honey? And what should it be? And how big should it be? I wonder what it would cost and what it should be made of. I'm not ready, to have the hook ripped out of me yet. It's going to take a while to reel me in and land me. And so I think the salespeople can be, like you said, their mindset is to literally think that if they don't close right there on that call, that they failed. And
right.
I'm not a big fisherman, but I've fortunately got opportunity to do several like bone fishing and in Florida, and to go out and fish for some bigger fish, and to go on Lake Erie and catch perch and walleye, and to just see like the different skill sets that are required depending on your customer. I mean, if you're catching perch as a customer, you put 2 hooks in at a time and they just jump in the boat for you. But if you're going after, bonefish, they're very elusive and they're very smart and tricky, and you could throw a hook out there all day long and nothing's going to happen, like with trout or something. So I think that this is a really great session here to just think about these new selling skills, because when the customer walked into a store or met with a contractor, they have a mindset about what's going to happen. But now, after COVID, now they're doing more things online and virtually, and they're discovering the parts of that they like, and they have their mindset about what they're looking for, but they don't have it printed on their forehead. Just looking, or would like to know this, concerned about cost, maintenance, so they see it, but the salesperson sees it as, okay, it's somebody, let's close them. So it would seem to me, Mark, that this isn't a one size fits all.
No.
You could have, first of all, the type of product you have. How big of an investment is this? Is this something you have to have, like a new roof when you have a leaky roof? Or is this something that would be nice to have, like a new deck? So each company would seem like would have to, it's like fishing, as I just said, for different types of fish. They'd have to say, okay, this is the way you fish for our customers. This is, our customer is smart. Our customer is wary, or our customer is easy to catch. What do you think about that?
Yeah. And again, keeping with this analogy, we've all done bobber fishing, probably when you were really, a child, right? And we need to identify the difference between a nibble and a bite. And that's really what you're talking about. A nibble is still a very valuable thing when somebody's reaching out for information. They're not ready to bite yet, but how do we treat them compared to how do we treat somebody who wants to literally just jump in the boat, right? We can teach salespeople how to quickly qualify people. The trouble that we often see is salespeople don't even recognize the nibble, and they're actually losing their bait. So they're going on to another website. They didn't follow up. I had one client, it was really disturbing in the, let's just say a very large building supply client. And about 70% of the leads that sales was being given were quickly disqualified. Nobody was following up on them. So all those little nibbles, they might not have been ready to reel in yet, but with a little bit of skill, they could have somehow made the bait a little more attractive and set the hook, right? So again, I really like this analogy of fishermen. In the digital environment, we have nibbles, we have bites, we have people that are desperate, like the roof that's leaking, but we need to teach the salespeople how to quickly qualify that. They're not leaving the boat, let's say, where in the past, face-to-face salespeople would go out, they'd see the person, they might walk around and see opportunities to serve them and make them more efficient and effective. We got to be able to help people ask really good questions so they can hear what they used to be able to see. So I've created some courses on how to create commercial conversations for the fishermen.
That's great. Because I think also, Mark, that just to sometimes it's everybody, kind of wants to put something in a box. And so to me, I look at the world of building materials as commercial and residential and new construction and remodel, repair, retrofit. And right. What we're talking about here, we may have been using words like deck and roof or something, and people go, oh, they're talking about residential. What we're talking about also applies to architects, general contractors, owners, facilities managers, subcontractors, both commercial and residential, both new construction and repair, remodel, retrofit. The wonderful tools that now the internet is really paying off in its promise for building material companies in particular, and some of the tools like Salesforce or HubSpot, better content and SEO, all of these things are just really great tools that are bringing in, if they're well done, they're bringing in more qualified prospects that need to be handled a different way. And if the whole thing falls apart, I think about we spend money, literally, someone finds our website, let's say, or finds about our company. They have a problem they want to solve, or they're looking specifically for a product, and they come to our website. And we spend a lot of time and money to have a great experience on the website. And then we may say, download this book of design ideas or something. We give them an offer that is not get a quote, and they tell us who they are. And then we start sending them a campaign to further engage and nurture them. And so we're very patient, it seems like, in the marketing part of digital marketing. And then all of a sudden, when they reach out to contact us, then all of a sudden the whole thing can fall apart. And it can fall apart either by one of the bigger problems that Mark just brought up is we don't respond fast enough. People today want to accomplish a task, and a task can be that I've got an appointment scheduled with somebody, a time, or somebody's going to send me something. But when I fill out something or make a call and leave a voicemail or send an email and get no response for a few days, I've already probably gone to your competitor. So there's that speed of response, and then there's the skill of being this talented fisherman that understands the fish and where, how do they act at different times of year and what bait works best, and all of those nuances, because it really is a different world, and it's a different set of skills. And you hate to see all of the investment and that has been made in marketing to get that fish to nibble and then to only send them away to the competition.
Yeah, because you become your competition's best marketing agent if you're not handling the bite correctly.
I'm going to steal that one. That's another good one, Mark.
Well, you are. I mean, as a past CEO, it used to drive me crazy because I would see the number of leads coming in and what our close rate on those leads were. And that's a problem I want to fix. Like when I talk to CEOs that are in the building supply materials manufacturing, what I often hear, and usually it's over a beer or two, is I wish my sales would run like my plant. I adjust this, I get this output. But sales is like a dark art, right? Well, think about fishing, right? There's different fish that, again, if I knew I was fishing, let's say for a wahoo, I would have different bait, different equipment, and I actually would have a different way of letting that fish tire itself out a little bit online before I reel it in so I don't snap the line, right? But you had mentioned perch fishing, which I love to do up on Lake Erie. And when perch are hitting, you just pull that line up and throw them in the boat, and as fast as you can put more bait on the hook, they're in, right? Well, the other problem fishermen have, though, is if they haven't been trained, and about 50% of salespeople have never been trained in sales skills. So that's pretty disturbing. So we really can't hold them accountable to the problem that we're talking about today until we at least train them. But they're spending as much time on a fish that would look more like bait than they would on a whale. They're treating every opportunity like it could be a whale. And we owe it to them to help them qualify very quickly, what is the best way of serving this client? And then make sure that we align the cost of service with the opportunity, right?
Yes.
But again, it all gets back to that human-to-human interaction. I think it was McKinsey that just published a study because people were curious. When are we going to go back to normal? I hear that all the time. Well, we're in normal now, okay? It's never going to go back.
Right.
I think what we're going to see is a sales hybrid model.
Yes.
And the fisherman's going to play a role in that hybrid. We're going to have inside sales doing outbound prospecting. We're going to have face-to-face sellers if it needs face-to-face, but we're also going to have fishermen who are responding to digital opportunities. And then you had mentioned the time effect. I call it the Amazon effect. I have building supply manufacturers tell me, well, our clients, aren't active online. Well, my challenge to you is they might not be today for your product, but I promise you at home, when they need something, they're going to Amazon. And they've been trained to get an answer in seconds, not in a day, not in 2 days. And the assessment tool that I use when I work with teams, they've done research, and there's a correlation between how fast you respond to a lead and the close rate. And if you can respond within the first hour, it's exponentially more beneficial to you than 24 hours. And after 48 hours, you might as well not even do it.
Yes, that's right. And, another thing that I think that my experience, Mark, that I've seen is we look and say a salesperson is a salesperson. And so then we have some salespeople who we perceive as better than others based on what we define as a good salesperson. Then the other people are not as good as the person that's the best. And we don't take a more nuanced approach. It's like taking your number one salesperson and making them the sales manager might not be the best idea. They may be a great salesperson, but they may be a horrible manager. And it's like, I think what we're talking about here is we've talked in the past about the difference between a hunter and a farmer. Well, now, we have another person that's because of what is happening in digital that we're calling the fisherman. And so literally it would seem to me that, I would want to look at my salespeople and kind of find a way to assess, what are their strengths, and then look at my organization and say, okay, maybe rather than having people have territories and you have to be all three types of salespeople in your territory, that maybe we do a reset on that and look and say, this person is the best hunter we have, and maybe their territory should be the United States. And
I see that happening all the time.
Then we have these 5 people are really great farmers, and we should maybe split the United States up into 5 territories for them, and then, where does the fisherman take place? And is the fisherman a person that turns it over like the hunter does to a farmer if they're a repeat purchaser or potential repeat purchaser? So just thinking about where this could go, it would seem like it'd be a great time to just kind of reassess your whole sales organization.
Well, that's what a lot of clients are doing. I mean, the pandemic, what I say, is accelerated a number of things. It accelerated the race to digital and e-commerce, right? It accelerated online marketing. It also accelerated, you remember pre-pandemic, the biggest challenge was just hiring people. And we knew they needed trained, but we were busy, right? I think it was Warren Buffett that said, you can tell who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, right? Well, the tide went out, and all of a sudden we were stuck with all these salespeople who maybe were never trained, and they didn't have any foundational skills to go back on. When we do the assessments, we've assessed over 2 million salespeople globally, and 60% struggle selling virtually. 60% of one's face-to-face salespeople, if you think right now that they're effective and efficient, there's a high probability they're actually frustrated and disengaged. So what we can do is, and again, I don't like to assess people. What I look at is I want a clear expectation of each role, and then find the people who are ideal for that role. So for example, a hunter, tenacious, a lot of grit. They're not easily impacted by rejection. They're not afraid. They don't have a fear of money. As the zeros keep adding, they don't get excited. They don't get nervous. They don't discount. They believe that when they hear no, it's just not yet, right?
Yes.
A farmer, on the other hand, might have a whole different tool set. They might be having some really good data analysis. Other large accounts like you also bought this, and this. Let me recommend this. How do we get more products in here? How do we grow together? But a fisherman's role is to reel that opportunity in. So what I would recommend is, if this message is really resonating with some people, maybe what we do is we really define roles: hunter, farmer, customer service, and fisherman, let's say. And then what we do is we identify the skill sets, which again, I'm very fortunate to have a huge data set to pull from. What are those skills by role? And then you have your team take an assessment, and we have a tool called the right sizing tool that actually assigns people to the right role.
Yes.
It's all about ROI. I mean, I don't mean to sound cold and calloused, because I'm a sales guy. I've been a sales guy for 36 years. I'm still a sales guy, but you got to have the right person in the right role. Today, it's about efficiency and driving the bottom line. And you had mentioned earlier, we've seen conflict when there's asking a farmer to be a hunter, right? And vice versa. We've known it for years, but now at least we have the science and the data to help us make those decisions. Where in the past, we might get frustrated. We expected somebody to be everything. And if you have a small company, you probably do need to have somebody that has everything, but make sure that they have the skills and to recognize what kind of an opportunity it is.
Yes. Well, it's literally like, there are companies that unfortunately they're going to have to wear different hats.
Right.
And so I think it would be helpful to know, okay, what is my true calling or strength? And then, what's going to be the biggest stretch for me? I remember there was a book written by, I think, Tom Peters from McKinsey years ago called In Search of Excellence.
Oh, yes.
And there was in Connecticut. So he went around the country and interviewed companies that were just outstanding. And one of them was a grocery store in Connecticut called Stu Leonard's Dairy. And at that point, Stu Leonard's Dairy was I think the number one producing store in terms of sales per square foot. And so like the president of Kroger's would go and walk through Stu Leonard's. What the heck are they doing? What are they doing? But they interviewed Stu Leonard, and he told this story that just really stuck with me for those people that have to wear multiple roles. And that was, he said, one day I had to put on my hat that says boss and I had to fire my son. I
Wow.
immediately took that hat off. I put on my hat that says Dad, and I said, son, I heard you just lost your job. How can I help you?
Right.
And so I found when I've had to change roles like that, that literally that really stuck with me is like, okay, right now I am doing this, and I put on the hat that I'm the hunter, I'm the fisherman, I'm the farmer. And it's just for me as a way to kind of remind me, okay, I need to think and act differently. Years ago, I took that Strengths Finders test, and my strengths were in strategy and ideas and things like that, and communication. And my wife, who's a psychologist, like her number one strength is empathy. And empathy is probably number 18 out of 35 on my list. And no matter how many courses I take in empathy, I will always be a bad karaoke version of my wife, okay? Because it's her natural, what she comes by. And so, but I think that there are some companies have the luxury of being able to redeploy their salespeople and be in their areas of strengths. And then there's many companies where they can do some of that. And then there's going to be some companies where everybody has to wear all the hats. And boy, do I think how helpful it would be to understand this is where I'm really amazing. And when I'm working where I'm amazing, I just love my job. It's like, I can't wait to get to work and to go do whatever that strength is. And then when all of a sudden I'm having a challenging day, I'm not maybe recognizing this is why it's challenging for me, that it's not my natural strength. And the other one I want to ask you, Mark, is also there's about many times I find that there's senior management of a company and then there's the salespeople. It's not really clear to the salespeople what is great performance. What are you expecting from me? Like, how do I measure that? And I think sometimes the leadership has a tough time communicating just what is a great job for you as a salesperson. Do you find that disconnect?
Yeah, actually, it comes out in one of our assessments. We look at, obviously each salesperson, but we also look at sales managers, sales VPs. We go all the way up to the CEO because the tool actually becomes a 360.
Okay.
And it's fascinating when we look at something like alignment.
Yeah.
Are we aligned? In other words, do you know what the strategy is? Oftentimes we hear yes, but do you believe in it? That's when there's some really aha moments. I just did one recently where everybody on the team, it's about 86% of the sales team believed in the sales strategy.
Yes.
But where it fell apart was marketing and how they ran the business. And the CEO just was shaking his head saying, we just had a meeting about this. And what I had to share with them was, you're right, you had a meeting, you shared, but the people don't believe. So until they believe, they're going to keep acting like they always have.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's great.
I think what we do is, I love your analogy of hats. Just imagine if you're going fishing, you might have a hat to keep the sun off of you, maybe have a few fishing flies stuck in it, right? If you're going hunting, it's probably hopefully for your sake, bright orange, so nobody shoots you, right? And farming, again, you might be a baseball cap just to keep the sun off your face, right?
Yes.
But what if we could create training so that very quickly a person on the phone or face-to-face knows what role they're in, what kind of customer is this, and how to treat them? That's going to improve your close rate.
Yeah. Another point that's happening with the digital marketing and the fisherman is we may have been used to being most familiar with our first customer, who may be a distributor.
Right.
And then the distributor sells to somebody who then sells to somebody. And so we've been most familiar with that first customer and then maybe the second customer as the contractor or we'll say builder. And so now it's wide open. Anybody could be coming in to get information. And so now that also the fisherman doesn't know initially, am I talking to a homeowner, a builder, a flooring dealer, a contractor, a distributor? And then I need to be able on the fly to be able to go, okay, I got to literally put on that hat, says I'm talking to an architect, And so that's another challenge and a skill set, being able to roll with that. I mean, it's one thing if you're talking to homeowners every day about a new deck, you get where you know the signs of how to talk to the homeowner. But if you don't know what's coming at you, that's another skill set where you need to be able to change on the fly quickly.
Well, and again, we owe it to our salespeople to help them.
Yes.
And that's why I'm a big advocate of leveraging data. So
Yeah.
we've talked about assessing your sales team. How about figuring out what your customers value? You had mentioned, the entire value chain in the building supply, industry. Well, the value messaging that a salesperson should use on an architect is probably a lot different than a contractor, a lot different than a consumer. So again, if we teach them how to qualify very early in the conversation, and equip them with good questions that help you demonstrate competence and build trust with really strong messaging that we know that particular buyer persona, for the lack of a better term, values, that's when you're going to start improving close rates. What's frustrating for me to watch, and again, I attend a lot of calls. Lately, I've been helping teams with this new dialing tool that makes prospecting fun. They treat everybody the same. And that's just like, email to 1,000 people hoping, just one little person nibbles, right?
Right.
But with digital, they've already nibbled, they're interested. Now we just need to quickly qualify and reel them in. And I think it's, again, I go back to training because I've been a sales trainer most of my career, and we owe it to our people to train them so that when they're in a situation, they know what to defer to. If you ask buyers what's driven them nuts for the last 35 years, as I have, is salespeople who don't listen and they don't know my business. But what they're saying is they don't know what I value.
Right. There's another important part of many salespeople miss out, but I could also see it happen, especially to fishermen. And so it's one thing if you have a homeowner contact you that needs a new roof, and they're going to buy a roof maybe once in their life.
Right.
And it's another thing when you get an architect on a project and you didn't make the sale on that project. Well, that architect probably, next week is starting a new project that's probably very similar to the last project. And so that architect could, if you didn't sell them, the people will walk away and go, oh, okay, well, no, we didn't get that. No, you made an impression on the architect who specifies your product on a regular basis. So you didn't get this project. Does that mean that you shouldn't go for the next project? Even if they didn't choose you, did the architect have a favorable impression of dealing with your company?
I think you bring up an excellent point because, again, so many people are doing it wrong, right? That just imagine if you did it right.
Well, like where does that lead go? Too often I find that lead just is like, oh, nope, gone. And I'm going, what? This is somebody that, is they're going to do it again next week and the week after and the week after. And they were interested enough to consider you on this project. And maybe this one didn't work out, but that doesn't mean that the next one won't work out.
But if you approached it like a hunter, let's say, instead of a fisherman, and you ripped the hook out of the architect's mouth because you weren't human to human, you were just jumping to a quote too fast, that's what they're going to remember. Well, but if you were trained and you asked really good questions that architects would instantly recognize that you've done business with architects before, maybe you wouldn't get that one quote, but you are going to leave a lasting impression and your brand will resonate with them.
Yeah, well, so I think you're exactly correct way to approach them as a fisherman. The issue that has become apparent to me is that architect, everything is set up to make a sale instead of to convert a customer.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to make too many of the things. Now, if you're talking to a distributor or let's say a lumber dealer or a big box store, well, the conversation is going to involve repeat orders. But if you're talking to an architect or a contractor or a builder, you're talking maybe about one project, but they have the potential they do many projects of the same types over and over again. And so if you didn't get that first one, I think they don't know what to do with that lead.
Right.
I'm working with a client right now where I identified it in Salesforce looking at, well, who are all these architects? Well, they're ones that we didn't get the job. I'm going, and have you ever talked to them again? No. So I think that's another challenge with our new world of digital marketing.
Well, we're also seeing, again, does it take to finally close a customer? How many people are involved in a buying decision today? I mean, we've seen a lot of shifts. And we need to equip them to help salespeople understand that, again, in the qualifying process, maybe one of the questions we ask is, who else is involved in this decision making? How can we set up a call with them? Don't count on the person, particularly a large purchase. Don't count on the person that you're talking to be the best salesman for you. A fisherman's going to invite themselves to the party, right?
Right.
If I find a great fishing hole, I'm going to invite myself to go there, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And that's, again, it's a whole different way of selling. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, market leading companies are adapting. And we had mentioned earlier, about salespeople. I believe everybody's destined for greatness in whatever role they're supposed to be in this world, right? The burden is on us as leaders to put the right people on the bus, right? We've been talking about that for years, and put them in the right seat.
Yes.
What better time than now than to strategically pivot and put people in the right seat?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. So, Mark, this has been, you and I could keep going forever. This has been I'm really glad we did this, because I think this is a really important subject in terms of how we've tried to expect a great salesman can do all of these things. And even just as we had in the past have looked at, there's hunters and farmers. And now, we've identified babysitters and fishermen. And I just think, wow, that I had not thought myself about, I was still back in the world of hunters and farmers and maybe a little babysitter, and had not thought about, the different skill set required by digital. And I love the analogy of a fisherman. So I think this has been very helpful to our audience, and hopefully it's given them something. Well, one, if you're a salesperson, to start thinking yourself about changing roles and how you're going to equip yourself to do that. And then if you're in sales leadership of a company, hopefully we've gotten you to step back and say, maybe I need to rethink how I position my salespeople, identify, train, develop them, have them in the right place. And then if you're in marketing, hopefully, as you're going to more and more not just be measured on how many leads you got, but how many of those leads turned into a sale. So the more that you can also help the salespeople, that will also be important to your future performance. So, Mark, I really appreciate you being on today. Do you just give us a little a recap of the types of things that you can do for companies?
Sure. Again, we talked a lot about, quickly assessing an organization. And again, I have a tool that actually assesses your team's current sales effectiveness. If any of your listeners would like to participate in a sales effectiveness survey, all they have to do is contact me. Mention the code word WIZARD, and you're actually going to get a nice discount, because I appreciate you inviting me to this and all the people that listen to you. The other thing is, one of the big struggles that I see is people are spending a lot of time trying to get revenue out of existing business when they should be looking for net new business right now. I'm working with another team that actually makes prospecting fun. So if any of your listeners want to try or test drive a new tool that helps you actually set up meetings with prospects to have meaningful conversations that lead to revenue, also give me a call. The test drive, like I say, is free. It's about 4 hours, and it teaches people who are hunters, naturally wired to be hunters, a much more effective and efficient way of attacking a target list. So again, I just thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to another episode where we talk about babysitters and why we really don't want those on our team. But unfortunately, about 20% of salespeople are babysitters today.
Yeah. Mark and I plan to do a session like 4 of these. This is the first one. And to talk about, we talked about fishermen today, to talk about babysitters who you don't want, and then talk about hunters and talk about farmers. So in upcoming episodes, we're going to cover all 4 of those. So hopefully this provides a lot of valuable things for you to think about as you continue to make yourself more effective and efficient as you move forward into this crazy new world that we're all facing. And Mark, what's the best way for someone that wants to get in touch with you? I'll put things in the show notes, but what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, my email is mark@OTB Solutions. And again, I've been doing this a long time, so I'm kind of an old school guy. I give out my cell number, 330-413-8552. I'm here to help. Because once we have the data, we can make sure we put people in the right seat with the right skills. And the ultimate goal is give your customers the best experience. Because like you said, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, this has been just the very helpful, just the information that you've shared with us today to help us to, step back and re-look at, let's say a more nuanced way of looking at improving the performance of our sales team. I think is very important. And this has been a really timely and topical subject that we'll touch more upon in the coming weeks. So thanks again for giving us your valuable time and sharing your wise wisdom.
Well, and thanks again for inviting me and all you do for the building industry. I've learned a lot working with you.
I really enjoy it. So and thank you to the listeners. If there's any subjects that you'd like me to cover in the future, please send me a note and pass this on to other people in your organization that you think this might be of benefit for. So until our next episode, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this podcast from Mark Mitchell on building materials, sales, and marketing. We hope he gave you some fresh perspectives on how to grow your sales, and will listen to future episodes.